today is a bit different. We're actually gonna go somewhere. You know, my wife's gonna do a makeup job today, so we're going down to Hopewell, I think. Yeah, that's where we're going. So yeah, I just thought that I'd share that with you, as well as talk about YouTubing on any device that you have. A lot of persons that I speak to, they're a bit concerned about that. They think that they need the newest device, or they need a nice DSLR or mirrorless camera. But a number of YouTubers out there, they started their channels on older devices. So we're just going to talk about that for a bit today. Out of the noise for a bit. Video quality is also another area that you want to ensure you're getting the best from your mobile device, because if you're not, then your video is not going to look the best on YouTube as well. So in the third-party apps that I was telling you about earlier, for Moment and Filmic, they have the bit rates that you can choose. For Filmic, you choose Filmic Extreme. That gets you the best quality from that app. For Moment, you go into their settings menu, and then you would select, I think it's 100 megabits. That's the best quality that you can get. But something to bear in mind, because talking about megabits per second here, the average person may not know what that means. So that determines how good or how bad your video looks. So the higher the megabits you have, the better the quality of your video will be. So let's put it across in layman's terms. Right now, this also has to do with the amount of memory that you have, because if you don't have enough memory to accommodate a video that's, let's say, about 10 minutes at a bit rate of 100 megabits, that is, then you might run out of memory before you finish that video. Then you may have to lower your bitrate in order to do your video, because you don't have enough memory. So that's something to bear in mind too when you're gonna do that, adjusting your bitrate to the best from each app. Along with the bitrate as well, we touched on lighting earlier. You want to ensure that your lighting is optimal to your video. Now, persons usually think that shooting in the sun is the best form of light, and we can understand that. But really, sunlight is not the best form of light to be shooting in. There is a division on your face at times. You see light and dark, which is not so pleasing to look at. You want your shadows to be as soft, meaning that your shadows is not as harsh, or it appears that you have less shadows in your shot. So that's what you really want when it comes to lighting, as against going into a very dark room where you will need lighting. So you have to look at where you get the best light for. In the daylight, you may need to find areas where you have a covered areas rather than shooting in the direct sunlight, because that will make your image look less professional, let's put it that way. So when you go into somewhere that has a bit of a shadow casted already, then your image will look soft and will look pleasing to look at, as against going in a dark area. There you will need to add some light, and we also suggest adding soft light. So natural light through a window is usually one of the best sources of light, but apart from that too, if you have a light, you can add what is called a softbox. It's something that looks like an umbrella over your light, and that kind of softens the light, so it's not that direct sunlight on your face. The light is spread out a bit, so it looks soft on your skin, or whatever it is that your subject is. Right, so those are a few quick tips, and I will see you in a few. So it seems as if the car is the best place to shoot the video here while we're in Hopewell. You know, outside is very noisy, windy, cars driving by. Trust me, it's hard to make a good video outside right now. We're talking about things that you need to do in order to make sure that you're getting the best from your mobile device to shoot your YouTube video. So the first thing that we want to look at here is exposure, and this happens to do with how bright or how dark your video is going to be. So too bright is going to look bad and all blown out. Too dark, you're barely going to make out anything that's there. So you want to have your exposure set at a nice balance where everything is properly exposed and it just is pleasing to the eyes to look at, basically. So that's what you want. Now with exposure, there is no rule for you to follow. You just have to look at the scene and create your own exposure value based on that. Now along with exposure, you want to ensure that your shutter speed as well is the correct one based on the amount of frames that your video will be shot at. So for example, this video that I'm doing right now is shot at 24 frames per second. So the general rule here is that you shoot at a shutter speed that is double the amount of your frames per second. Now the reason you want to do that is because 24 frames is the most natural cinematic look that you can get. They say that the human brain is only able to process about 24 frames per second at a time. So you get that natural blurry looks when you move your hands, for example, like this, when you shoot at 24 frames per second. But when you shoot at a shutter speed that is at 48 frames per second, shutter speed of 48 rather, that adds to the natural look of your 24 frames per second video, right? Now the third thing that we want to look at here is ISO. Now this has to do with how sensitive the lens is to light. So you want to think about that too, because if your ISO value is too high, then you're going to get an image that looks overexposed or blown out, too bright. And if it's too low, you're gonna get a very dark image. Now something to know with ISO is that there's a caveat here, in the sense that the higher the ISO value that you use, the more grain you're adding to your image. Now we want to avoid adding grains to our videos, so you try to use a lower ISO value, the lowest ISO value possible that you can use in your videos, right? The final thing that we want to look at is also your white balance. So that's determined by what you're seeing. Now you have it's a graph. I don't know if I should say it's a graph, but you have two values that you'd need to find a balance between them. One is a colder color temperature and one is a warmer color temperature. So the lower the white balance value, the colder or more blue your video is going to look. The higher the white balance value is, the more warmer or yellow your video is going to look as well. So you have to determine the white balance that you want to use while you're shooting your video, right? So guys, I'm gonna talk to you again. I have to run, sorry about that. I'll talk to you soon. Okay guys, so we are back, and as you can see, I got a haircut. Now, the bottom line of this video is that you can make YouTube videos on any device. Once you follow these techniques, you'll be on your way to making videos. And don't be afraid to research other techniques that you can use as well to create those videos and to make them appear, you know, professional as you want them to look on YouTube. So guys, you know, get started on those videos, get posting, and, you know, don't forget to like, subscribe to this channel. And guys, that's all for me. I'll see you soon.